What is up, everybody? Today I wanted to talk about the character that I've been playing for the past week and a half or so that I would say has turned out very well. It is a Poison Penance Brand assassin. Now, I originally started this character actually as Poison Spark Assassin. I had seen Garatha playing it, and it looked reasonably fun. I thought it was a pretty cool option to use the new assassin node for all damage from hits can poison. And historically, or at least in the past, I had enjoyed Spark quite a bit. So I went through and leveled that character, followed along with a lot of the same things that Garatha was doing. Most notably, I was going through and doing the reverse chill setup here with Apep Slumber and the Golden Rule to get these poisons reflected back to you. And it was okay. It was pretty decent damage, but there were two main problems that I personally had with it. One, kind of just hurt my hand, man. Like the amount that I had to constantly click or mash or reposition and be trying to do damage uptime while I'm, sparking in the right direction. It just hurt my wrist, and so that was not a particularly enjoyable time. I'm almost 30 now. I'm becoming old and frail, and so that was just not exactly what I was loving. And secondly, I kind of touched on a little bit, but there's just a lot of problems to solve with that build, with the change to transfigure gems and quality. Spark previously giving projectile speed on its quality. There were more avenues to meaningfully scale some of the different kind of issues that you had with Spark as a skill. Because the main things are you swap over, you get Spark the Nova, so you shoot them in a circle and have more projectiles, and you really need both, or I guess all three, of a mixture of high cast speed, high skill effect duration, and high projectile speed, because the way that Spark meaningfully does a lot of damage is by kind of just hitting a critical mass of a number of those different Spark projectiles. And that gets kind of amplified as you're doing poison, because unlike with hit damage, you really look to ramp up the time and duration at which you're actually casting those to really hit those high poison numbers. So it just felt kind of uncomfortable. So I was looking around for different options for what to play. I didn't necessarily want to go back to Elementalist. I was having fun on the general poison playstyle, but I didn't exactly want to keep doing Spark. I looked around for different options, and I noticed that there were two existing Poison Penance Brand characters that some people were playing. There was Elementalist, which was using those Delirium boots and reduced, what is it, debuff effects or reduced debuff duration, but you don't stack up all of the madness things. And I think that's the thing that allows you to poison. Either that, or it's the Eater boots. Oh, one of the two of those can let you do some full poisons with all of your damage, and then there's also the Pathfinder version as well that I know exist. But because that also, Penance Brand does another good job of scaling up really high hit damage with its more multipliers, and it is fizz scaling, which is always quite helpful for getting a ton of extra damage. I thought, hey, why not give it a whirl? We'll keep some of the same guts here, but swap out a lot of the different pieces. You don't need to solve as many of the things. You really just need cast speed. Skill effect duration is nice, but not super necessary. And this is the character we have created, and boy, it is pretty dang good. I'm level 97 now, and almost going to hit 98 if I don't do anything too stupid. and it has been performing very well for me. Bosses, die, I would say, quite quickly. As long as there aren't any dumb immunity phases, I can pretty much one phase almost any boss that I ultimately fight against. And mapping with the Azanaths and some of the other prolif options, if you're using, say, Foulborn Witchbane, or you're using the was it Foulborn and Balmer gloves for poison spread, it really helps a lot with covering a lot of the normal clear issues that Penance Brand of Dissipation has. So I highly recommend this if you're interested in the poison playstyle and spellcasting, but you don't really want to go through a lot of the pain and anguish to fix a lot of the problems with Spark. So jumping into the build, what we've got here, I would say it's pretty standard for the most part for your typical poison skill, where on the right/top side of the tree, we're gonna have to make our trek all the way over here to the top left to grab Runebinder and these brand nodes. Brands do have an absolutely absurd mana cost. You see this thing has 83 mana, so we have gone for Eldritch Battery and Mind over Matter here with our Evasion and Energy Shield. We are suppress capped by grabbing these couple of suppress wheels and having some suppress on gear. The only major thing we do not have right now is elemental ailment immunity. I have dropped an Ancestral Vision, but I just don't have enough Avoid Ailment effect to be able to meaningfully get that. If I went to a rare shield, or if I just got a Storm Shroud, we would be able to get that. But SSF, what can you do? For the tree, I would say this is all relatively standard, picking up, like I said, Suppress, Life, just a little bit of Mana Reservation, and some of the various dot wheels. We have a lot of high impact nodes around this assassin starting area. I've actually opted to grab both Forshaper and Atrophy because it is a fizz-based skill, and we do scale off that bit of fizz damage and attack and cast speed. It makes this entire set of double clusters quite useful. We grab our second Curse for the sake of Temp Chains and Despair, wherever it is that I have that right here. I said we grab Eldritch Battery, swing around, grab Elemental Overload, some of the lightning damage and cast speed. This is just a small thing, but I have decided to go for the Lightning Mastery as opposed to a Fizz to Lightning gem. My thoughts here are mostly because I wanted to have more options for scaling the Azanath's explosion as well. I don't have a ton of Fizz as extra right now, but I do have at least some more either just generic increased damage or increased lightning damage. And so I'm likely to get bigger explosions from the Azanaths with this mastery as opposed to just having it linked in the Penance Brand. Now, that would also be different or better if I had a much larger percent increased lightning damage roll on my wand, but I do not, so that is something that you can look to do. If you'd rather save the passive point, you can drop this, put that point somewhere else, and then swap one of these gems for Fizz to Lightning. But finishing out the tree here, we swing down, grab some more dot, grab Jewel Socket, and then, like I said, jump over here for our Brand Mastery and Keystone. I am very much not using many clusters. There's a decent chance that either a Chaos or a Lightning Damage cluster could be useful here. It just hasn't really felt like it is exactly fit in with how I've built the character, and frankly, it just hasn't been all that necessary, so I just haven't spent a lot of time looking and trying to figure out what all I would drop and try and fix and this and that and the other thing. So Not something that I have too much worried about, but if it is something that you want to do, please feel free to do so. I guess quickly touching on the jewels that I'm using. Like I said, I have the golden rule for the poison reflections and to kind of fix my chaos resistance. At this point, I'm using the golden rule mixed with Apep's slumber for my poisons, and then, of course, shadowed blood, the new assassin ascendancy for unaffected by damaging ailments. Overall, I would say this is pretty decent. The golden rule overall is certainly much weaker than I would say Apep Slumber is. Apep Slumber specifically is quite nice. Obviously, it's it's a decent amount of ES, but it gives a lot of effective HP. With the +3 to all max res, we are just at 78 all, while we have just a handful of poisons on us, which we hit fast enough with the Penance Brand that unless we're in the middle of immunity phases, we'll pretty much always be at 100 stacks. And then really the thing that is particularly nice here is this regenning of energy shield up to 400 per second. One of the difficult things with a lot of damage over time builds is that in most cases, if you want to do ailments, you want to be running deadly ailments. And unfortunately, this line, with dealing so much less damage with hits, makes your opportunities to get recovery more difficult, because it's not as simple as just, take a couple of leech nodes, because with deadly ailments slotted in, we're at 13,000 just as a base DPS here. We put this in, we go down to 2,000. If I click one of these ES leech nodes over here, I might be leeching 10 energy shield per second or something like that. It makes it very difficult to sustain that as a meaningful way to get your ES and your life back up. You could look at replacing deadly ailments with something else like Swift Affliction if that is more of a problem. You don't have meaningfully good other ways to recover that. But I have found Apeps to be a very good option for that, for getting that regen, especially as you're doing EB Mom. But you certainly could just drop the entire self-poison package, so you can get rid of this shield for a rare, probably just a Sovereign Spiked Shield with very high evasion ES. You could very easily get your additional spell suppress, some max res, some avoid LE ailments here, and that would be quite good as well. And then you would free up a jewel socket, because at least how I have the build currently, I'm pretty low on jewel sockets. I am debating on, once I hit 98, to actually pathing this inside a tree back once again to the outside and picking up this jewel socket, just for the sake of having an additional open slot here. I would very much like to, where the golden rule is, put a light of meaning for, fizz, lightning, or chaos damage. That would be very juicy. If I can get one, I think I've run 9 King of the Mist fights with no jewel drop, so that's what I get, I guess. Looking at the rest of the gear, I don't know where my buttons are. So, I guess circling around back to the wand. This is the wand that I have. I would say this is overall pretty cool. It's a double +2 wand, I guess I should say, with T1 lightning damage to spells, and then I'm a weenie baby boy, and so I just multi-modded the suffixes. The way I got this wand was a little odd. I was Alteration Orb spamming the Profane Wand, and hit +1 level to all spell skill gems. From there, I used a Foulborn Augment and a Foulborn Regal, hit some crap suffix, but when I hit the Regal, I hit the T1 lightning damage to spells. From there, I crafted a random thing, and I had a Fracturing Orb sitting around, and so I thought to myself, hey, I could maybe hit +1. I did not. As you see, I hit T1 lightning damage to spells, but I was still in a position where I could force on that +1 all fizz spell skill gems. if you did not know, and I believe this is only for Fizz. Yes, I believe it's only for Fizz. You can force this on to wands by if you have open suffixes, or I guess at least if you have one open suffix and one open prefix, you can do prefixes cannot be changed, scour it to make sure all of your suffixes are free, and then you have to can have up to 3 crafted modifiers, prefixes can't be changed, and cannot roll attack mods. From there, on the harvest bench, you can use add new physical modifier and remove another random modifier to force +1 to level of all Fizz spell skill gems, because that is the only other modifier with a physical tag that does not have an attack tag. And because this adds first and then removes after, it will add the second +1, and then the remove, because you have the prefixes cannot be changed mod, will only remove one of your 3 other crafted modifiers. From there, if you magically didn't remove the prefixes cannot be changed, you could either do Reforged Speed, you could do Veiled Exalted or a Veiled Chaos Orb. The, I guess, best case scenario for this would be to Reforge to be able to get, like, say, Tier 1 cast speed, and then probably prefixes can't be changed, Veiled Exalt, try and hit the 50-50 of not removing the cast speed, and then IDing chaos damage over time multiplier, but Veiled Exalted Orbs are so expensive, and I cannot be bothered to also farm up that many Divines to be able to do that. So I got somewhat lucky, annulled it a couple times, kept the multi-mod, so saved me a couple div, and then just decided to craft cast.multi and cast speed, and I said, hey, this is pretty good. But otherwise, the rest of my gear, I would say, is pretty straightforward. We have life resistances and spell suppress. Most all of this is from the breach tree. Same thing here with the necrotic armor, reasonably high evasion and ES, and then some resistances and suppress. Life res, breath, life res. I have an open prefix because I have farmed, I don't know, 25 hunters to attempt to get a Hunter's Exalt to slam this for either chaos damage or % life. I have not gotten a Hunter's X, so this stays sitting here in this depressed state. Citrine Amulet, pretty decent with hitting the life cast speed and damage over time multiplier. All of those are quite good. I have the strength just crafted on here because strength is at least a little bit of a problem for me at the moment because I am using the awakened added fire damage. Really good, but with the way that I've pathed, I don't get enough strength, and the rest of my things are not amazing for that. So I could fix this more easily, but I'm just kind of lazy. We have the Betrayal Sting ring. This ring slaps. This is so much damage. As long as your resistances can handle the giant minus res, the chance to inflict an additional poison is a ton of DPS. Best case scenario, honestly, especially if you have like a Mage Blood or something else, would be getting a nice fat corrupted one of these with, I don't know, like Malevolence Aura effect or something like that, or Haste, and maybe swap the auras around, and then just slapping that with a Calandra's Touch, or just wearing 2 of these. Obviously, you know, it's really difficult to just have minus 50 all res if you're not going to, you know, be wearing a Bismuth Flask with a Mage Blood or something like that, but getting this roll as high as possible and getting the quality on it is just a ton of damage. This ring slaps. And then lastly, we have Azanath's. Pretty straightforward here. It is our second curse. Tempt Chains is really good because not only does it prolong the duration of the poisons on your enemies, it also prolongs the duration of your brand, because for whatever reason, brands being attached to enemies is considered a debuff on them, and so temp chains prolongs that duration too, so you'll actually get more activations on a temp chained enemy as well. For our sockets, like I said, we have Penance Brand, Dissipation, Unbound Ailments, Awakened Deadly Elements, Awakened Added Fire, Swift Brand, and Faster Casting. One small thing to note here for these bottom two links, Swift Brand and Faster Casting, these are going to be something that you'll need to watch out for and likely just feel out as you play. The more activation frequency and increased gas speed are really nice for feeling the Penance Brand get up to max stacks more quickly, but it specifically, the Swift Brand does really cut the number of total max activations that your brands can have while attached. So you will need to more regularly recast the brands and wait for them to tick up to max stacks. Now, that may not be a huge issue, and ultimately it will be more damage as long as your total uptime is high, but that very much depends on the content that you're doing and your playstyle, especially when fighting against bosses. I would generally suggest that if you think that you are going to be playing, longer boss fights or spend more time repositioning or dodging, I would probably drop Swift Brand for something like Efficacy, which would, over double the number of total activations that your brands are going to have while at max stacks. And it doesn't ultimately cut the total amount of damage that you're going to be doing by much, if at all. But it is something meaningful to watch out. You can also, kind of split the difference and drop the faster casting for the Swift Brand if you kind of want something, a little in between. But it is something that I would both, poke around in POB with, and then also just feel out as well. I like having both faster casting and Swift Brand in my links for mapping, because I just want the damage to occur as quickly as possible, and I'm just going to recast a lot of these brands anyway. Otherwise, we have our Withering Step set up with automation, because I cannot be bothered to press this when I need to. I do not like pressing too many buttons, and I feel like I already have enough buttons on my bar as it is. I'm not about to do that. We also have a little Immortal Call on our automation, because similarly, it'll be up whenever I feel like it. I have enough things in my links in the first place. I don't really care. We've got one of our auras here, our Herald of Ash. Looking at our other auras, we have Herald of Agony and Purity, enlightened along with our Malevolence here too. It is useful to note that we have Discord Artisan, this node Anointed, giving us a good bit of increased global damage for each Herald affecting us, because we have 3, and then we have some Herald effect as well too, which increases poison damage, increased Fizz, and Fizz's extra fire. So this overall does quite a bit for getting us a good amount of extra damage. Didn't mean to swap that. For our last aura, we have a little level 1 vitality here. This is entirely because I have a Watcher's Eye with some flat life per enemy hit while affected by vitality. I have this in my links to solve that life side of some of that regen. So I have the flat life per enemy hit to help regain a lot of my life as my Penance Brands are casting, and then I have the 400 regen for my ES side, and those combined help create a lot of sustain that I can get not from Leech while I'm playing, and that helps make this build feel pretty tanky. Looking at the last nodes, I have a Wither Totem set up here. I chose to go for more duration as opposed to faster casting, because the more duration actually affects not only the primary debuff, but also the wither stack duration, and so you can more reliably stay at max wither stacks as you're repositioning and recasting the totems. So you see here, withered lasts 4.4 seconds. I take out the more duration. Withered lasts 3 seconds, and so it is a huge buff to the amount of time that Withered lasts on the enemy, which is then, of course, increased as well by Temporal Chains, which just that mixed with the Withering Step means that we are very consistently at 15 Wither stacks all of the time. One thing that is doubly worth noting related to this totem, if you're going to do a totem setup, you do need to use multiple totem support because we have taken Runebinder. This drops the number of max summon totems by 1, which technically means without multiple totems, we are at 0. So we need to take multi-totem support so we can actually just cast the 2 in the first place. And then lastly, we have our shield charge, faster attacks, and then a frost blink of Wintry Blast. But overall, that is the build. It has been a ton of fun to play. I have had a great time. If you have any thoughts, questions, concerns, other ideas for the build, please feel free to let me know. Otherwise, have a great day.